with the help of Blaine Anderson. She's phenomenal. She gives off really great tips. Implemented it into my own dating strategy, and it has completely uplifted my overall.
Oh my God. Okay.
I'd like to cover that here. I think it's really important, and I think it could really help a lot of people.
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast. They're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free. A Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max, a strong force with a punch in every word. Together, they navigate the dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I am your host, Sarah Levine. I have my co-host with me, Max Landisman. I am recording overseas, so I hope you guys can hear us.
Why is this podcast episode different from all our podcast episodes? Because Sarah is calling in from Israel for the first time. They actually, her and my brother officially moved to Eretz Yisrael. They just got there, I believe, Monday, correct?
Yeah, we got here on Monday, and it's been like a whirlwind nonstop. Don't even know what day it is today, but we're just pulling through.
And yet we're still here recording for you guys, all in the name of Good for Shidduchim. How about that?
Yeah, we're very dedicated to our loyal fans out there.
I don't even know if you guys have a dining room table to eat on, but the podcast must
go
on.
We do not.
I'm
literally eating dinner in my bed, which is actually nice. I love doing it. But,
really?
Yeah, I mean, slowly but surely we'll get our apartment together. But, what's priority is Good for Shidduchim.
That's right. Good for Shidduchim takes priority over everything. Because everything, because as I say at the end of every episode, remember, everything is always about Shidduchim.
It's true.
Everything is.
But guys,
yeah,
it's true. But guys, please follow us on Instagram. It's at Good for Shidduchim. And like us, subscribe to our podcast anywhere you listen to our podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. We're basically anywhere.
That's right.
And email us at goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. And we will definitely love to get some fan mail. We did get an email, and we're probably going to discuss that a little later.
Yeah, 100%. It was a great email and everything.
Exciting.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's exciting.
It's very exciting. I was really happy to see it. But yeah, we definitely need more likes. So if you are listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we highly encourage you to like us. It would really mean a lot to us. We appreciate it as we're trying to up our rankings in the Jewish podcast listicle thing, whatever. We're trying to get to the top 10 or whatever. So that would definitely help us. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for also subscribing to our podcast. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star review if you can.
There you go.
So yeah. All right, anyways, we wanted to delve into our topic today. I can't rember, Max, if it was your idea, somebody brought it to your attention.
So yeah, I'll definitely I saw this idea on what do you call it? Yeshiva World News of all places. Like people wanted to know what topics to discuss on a date. And so I thought this was a great topic because I have, with the help of Blaine Anderson, who you can follow her on Instagram. She's phenomenal. She gives off really great tips on stuff to text girls, what to say, whatever. So I've actually implemented it into my own dating strategy, and it has completely uplifted my dating strategy overall.
Oh my God.
Incredible. Even over text, not even just meeting. It's really incredible. Like I've seen with my own eyes how a different shift of how women react to me versus before. And so we are going to, I'd like to cover that here. I think it's really important, and I think it could really help a lot of people.
Yeah. But the main topic we wanted to discuss was basically what to say and what not to say on your first date.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot there are a lot of topics people want to cover on a first date. They're very anxious. And then they actually lose an opportunity to focus more on like stuff that should be focused more on a first date rather than like other stuff that gets in the way. So
how many kids do you want to have?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I can say my opinion on it, but I personally think that like the first date is literally bare minimum. The bare minimum of like of a personal, I would say. Like you want to just get to know the person. That was me personally. I just wanted to get to know them.
Right.
Relax, take it easy. Like you aren't getting married to this guy. You don't have to know how many kids he wants. You don't have to
What?
know where
Since
he
when?
wants to live.
I
You
thought
don't
that
have
was a
to
standard
know
question.
you don't have to know like where he sees well, no, I guess where he sees himself in 10 years is actually a nice question.
I hate
But
that
you
question,
really
but yeah.
don't have to you don't have to go very personal to the point where you're just like talking about your future children and where they'll go to school. You know, like this is just a first date. Why don't you get to know like hobbies or what do you
So
like to do in your spare time? What do you like where you work or like it just like very general questions, like just getting to know the person,
uh,
feeling the vibes of them, and like not delving into the very nitty gritty and a lot of like a lot of questions that come up, like where do you want to live and like how many kids do you want or like where do you see your kids going to school? All of those questions and answers are going to change. They
do,
will.
do you feel like a lot of those types of questions actually get asked on the first date?
Yeah. Oh my God. 100%.
Really? Like even from a woman's perspective, guys would ask you that?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Even on the Upper West
Yeah.
Side, they ask that.
Also, yeah. But also, politics, I also steer away from on a first date.
Oh yeah.
I never want to talk politics
They,
either.
yeah.
You just don't want to, like, unless you guys love talking politics, But I veer away from like controversial topics and very personal topics on the first date. I know a lot of people will disagree with me and they'd say, like the first date, you don't want to waste your time on a second date, if he wants to live in Alabama and you want to be in New York,
Hmm.
But like I don't think it's worth bringing that up unless it like comes up organically, I guess. But I think the first date is just really getting to know the person. And if you can just, have a nice time. And if you want to spend more time with them, that's what you'll do on the second date.
So I want to hear like what you would do on dates, and I also think I think a lot of these questions. Tell me what you think, but I think a lot of these questions may not be. They may not have actually wanted to ask it, but they just ran out of things to say and don't know what to say on a date. So therefore,
Yeah,
just to
that's
fill the
true.
air or fill the time, they're like,
Yeah.
so like, how many kids do you want, or, or where do you see yourself? I hear this a lot, like, where do you see yourself living and things of that nature. So
Right.
in general, how did you approach your first? Meaning, what things would you ask, or how did you approach your first date?
Right. So, my first date, like I said before, is like I would try to be like more relaxed and like not put so much pressure on the first date. Like I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the first date. You don't know each other obviously, and like you either saw each other's pictures or you didn't see each other's pictures, and like you haven't spoken directly or maybe you've only spoken a little bit on the phone. Like you really don't know what to expect on the first date. So I feel like there's a lot of anxiety encompassing the first date. There's a lot of pressure, anxiety, a lot of questions all around, just like not feeling, it's not the best feeling a first date.
Mhm.
There could be a little bit of excitement.
I would hope
But
so,
for the
right?
most part, for me, right, for the most part, it was like engulfed by anxiety and pressure. And like, I mean, there was excitement, but like, that was not my first, that just wasn't my first feeling.
Like you
But
were when you went in, you were going
um,
in like really anxious, or just nervous, or whatever.
yeah, I would always, it didn't matter if I really liked the guy. I was always anxious, very anxious. But I would talk to myself, and say, like, don't put so much pressure. Like, I felt a lot of shadchans, put a lot of pressure on the first date. Like, girls have to get their hair done, put on their makeup. And sometimes they're asked, like, what type of clothes are you wearing, Like,
What?
there's like a lot of pressure. Yeah. but so I would try to take that pressure off and really like just see like what is the person like to do in the meantime. You can really figure out somebody by what they do in their on their personal time.
Mm-hmm.
Do they like to read books, or are they more going out with friends, or do they like to go to shows, do they like to go to museums?
Mm-hmm.
You get to know a person with that question. And then you can also, I would also ask, like, you talk about your job, if you like your job, where you see yourself in your job, or like if you want to switch, or how did you get there, like things that you can relate to, very relatable topics.
Right.
What I would steer away from was politics, personal family questions, like any, like, I don't like when they would start to ask, like, where did my sister go to college, or like where, like, why is your sister a different hashkafa than you, or like why is your brother a little different hashkafa than you, like stuff like that. I'd be like, okay, I'm not, like, I don't know you really, like, let's not talk about my family yet. My family, like, you like how many siblings do you have? That would be definitely, totally fine, but like I would try to keep everything kind of on a surface level, and then you can start to dive in a little slowly. You want to dip your toe in before you dive right into the pool. So
yeah,
that's what I would do. That's what I would try to do on my first date.
I'm curious, if someone were to bring up, like, so how many siblings do you have, and start talking about your siblings? Number one, I assume you don't want to talk about it because it's a little too personal, but is there also like this aspect of like, I don't understand, why don't you talk about me? Why are we talking about my sister? Is there
right,
anything
exactly.
anything about that? Yeah.
Right. That's how I would not like that. That's kind of how I would feel. Like sometimes, like I have an older brother, and I would always be asked, like, oh, is he dating? Is he single? And I'm just like, what? Like, do you want to set him up with your sister? I don't know.
Maybe the guy you were dating is interested in going out with your brother.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm just like,
Upper West Side.
That's like a little bit of a personal question. Like I said, I was totally fine stating like how many siblings I have, where they live, and like what they're up to. But like other than that, like I kind of kept a little bit of a distance. But that was just me. I don't think the first date really should be about these specifics that people are hyper focused on, because then some things change, like if you are a person that's like, I want to stay in the New York, New Jersey area, that is what I want. Well, how do you know that like something, maybe another job opportunity will come up in LA,
Well, they say man plans, God laughs, right?
Exactly. And I think that like it's good to have a map of expectations and like where you see yourself and what you want for yourself, and I did the same thing. But the rigidity, I feel like, can be a little detrimental. It's like good to kind of understand that balance, Yeah,
100%. I do think it's really interesting, because I feel like the one thing on a shidduch resume actually describes in detail who your siblings are and what they're doing. The one thing that you actually can learn from is what your siblings are doing and whatever. Like, it's like also the one thing I can care less about. Why the hell do I care? I don't even know this person. Like, why do I care that your brother's an accountant?
Right.
Like, whatever. I'm saying it's very nice, but like, it has nothing to do with the girl. I want to know before I go on a date. I want to know if we're even compatible in the first place. So I find it really funny, because I do think this comes up all the time on dates, but I think that there's just nothing else to talk about, so they talk about it.
Right. I think what you mentioned before, like if there's reason to like fill the air, well, first of all, maybe your conversations aren't going so well, and that's something that you should think about. But if there is like a lull, and you kind of are just like, okay, so like, how many kids do you think you want? Like, I don't know if that's like, I would try in the back of my mind to be like, okay, if there's a lull, this is the question I'm going to ask,
Yep.
or like, maybe piggyback on another question that was asked before. A panic question may not be the solution, but that's just my opinion.
So I like to prepare, like, to just in case if you need to have, if you just need to fill the air, to have a couple questions like prepared before, so that, you know, write them on your hand if you need to, whatever. I'm just messing, but here I want to know your take on the following. You know, how to have a conversation flow and things of that nature, where, you know, you ask the person, what do you like to do? And they'll be like, you know, I like to ride my bike. And to just come up with 3 or 4 follow-up questions. You could literally do this as like a template. Like, do this before you even get to the date, so you're like prepared, you feel prepared, and it like brings on more confidence, where you can ask 4 follow-up questions that will probably fit any situation. If you ask someone what they like to do, they'll tell you. Unless someone is extremely talkative, that they'll not just answer the question, they'll like give you 50 billion different ideas or details on how much they like riding their bike, where they like their whatever. But here are like 3 or 4 questions you could ask as a follow-up. So if they answer like, I like going bike riding, you'd be like, that's so interesting. Where do you like to go? So where do you like to go? They'll tell you, and then you'll be like, how did you underline you? Everything's about the other person. How did you get into bike riding? How long have you been doing it? What has your experience been? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Right. You can literally create like 10 different questions. These are just on the top of my head, where that can extend the conversation for like 20, 30 minutes on just bike riding. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like though, Max, you're like a natural. I feel like some guys may be a little nervous and like not know exactly how to smoothly transition like you do, you know?
Well, the thing is, it's like, you know, most people don't believe me, but I literally couldn't hold it. I used to not be able to hold a conversation for more than like 10 seconds. Literally.
Yeah.
But I think when you hit rock bottom in a certain area and you really want to get better and grow is, you know, if you want to achieve something, God kind of helps you get there. So I got a little help from my older brother, who's the king of social. He gave me a couple of tips. And so ever since then, I kind of delved into my own form. And now I'm like I run a podcast now. Interesting. I'm literally,
I know. It's crazy. But what advice would you give somebody who is like not knowing exactly what to ask, except he's probably just going off, or she's probably just going off, you know, like a resume. It's like more of an interview sometimes. And I guess they're just used to being interviewed or being the interviewer, you know?
That's why, you know, in the questions that I'm going to mention soon, which are so different, probably very different than any of the questions that are being asked now. But before that, just like, even for me, like learning about these different questions, I learned from Blaine Anderson. She's a dating coach, completely secular or whatever. You can follow her on Instagram. She's phenomenal. She gives such great dating advice. So I follow her. And so the fact that I have these questions in my back pocket, like, even makes me feel more confident, because, you know, if I ask the question, we get into a whole conversation, I know I've got 7 more bullet points I could ask that literally have an endless amount of ideas to talk about. So I feel very confident. I think anybody has the ability to sit, especially if you're very nervous before a date, to just sit down and just come up with different ideas to talk about. I think anyone, like, if the more prepared you are, the less nervous you're going to feel. It's like, so you have all the answers on the test.
Right. So what are the questions? What are some questions?
Let's get into this. So these are Dafka. I like to use the word Dafka. These are Dafka specifically used from a guy. It was really meant to be like texting a girl, whatever, but you can use them in person as well. I've personally used this. The first time I used this, I literally could not believe my eyes what happened. It's almost as if, it's a little inappropriate to say on here, but literally it sounded like she wanted me in her pants. Like, that's just what happened. But it just completely changed the dynamic. It was just much better than, hey, how's it going? Whatever.
Okay, so what are some examples?
The question I like to start out with, and I'm sort of hesitant because I'm kind of giving out my secrets. I'm still in the dating pool. Like, if you're a girl who may or may not have dated me or will date me in the future, now know what I do. So whatever. I think it's worth it. It'll help people. So the first question.
Who cares? If it works, it works.
It works, right?
Whatever.
So the first question I like to ask is, I'd love to get your take on it. So I'm curious, what's your love language? Shidduchim.
That's a good question.
Good question, right? Your reaction seemed like no one's ever asked you that.
Actually, Shlomi asked me.
Did he really? Shlomi's a king. I mean, he's hard to beat.
Yeah, he did.
He asked you on the first date?
We talked about love languages. I can't remember if it was on the first date, but I told him, for me, like, I like to give gifts. Like, I like to take, like, show more of the appreciation, like either gift giving or like dinner or doing something.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that was the first date, though?
I can't remember if it was on the first date or if it was the second date. It was pretty early. It was pretty early on. Yeah.
I remember I was in the car and Shlomi was telling me, I don't remember why it was brought up, but he's like, women love DMC. And I, being the ignoramus that I was at the time, I'm like, DMC, what's that? He's like, Max, you don't know what DMC is? I'm like, are you kidding? He's like, women love deep, meaningful conversations.
Yeah, it's true.
It's so true, right? But it's
true.
If you don't have a strategy or you don't like know what to say or whatever to get into those deep, meaningful conversations, it could be hard. But I think this is a great way to kind of navigate. And as you mentioned, Shlomi really is the king. He really does. It's really surprising, but he's really good at that. He's really good at that.
He is, but that opens up. See, now that's a low pressure conversation. You get to know the person. You get to see how they show their love in a different way. You know, and that's a good question. Wow.
Yeah, I think the common denominator of all these questions, I have 7 questions here total. I think the common denominator of all of them are it gets a woman to think. It's not a yes or no question. It's
they
really
it's
just haven't
question.
been asked that, and they really have to think about it. And
So what are the other ones?
Wow, you really just like getting into the next one. I was still on love language.
I'm curious.
I was still here. Let me finish the love language first, and then we'll get into number 2. But so I actually used this 3 times. 2 out of 3 times were absolutely off the ball amazing. Off the ball amazing. The 3rd time was really like, she actually is like, these are good questions. She's just not into it. It's not like it's a perfect thing, whatever. But if you're going to get the 2 out of the 3 amazing, then I'll take that chance anytime. So another question, I'm reading them off order, but that's the first question I like to ask. What's one thing you wish people knew about you?
Oh,
it's such a good question, no?
That's also a really good question.
Because instead of feeling like all the pressure's on you now, whatever, it's almost like the entire thing shifted on her because you're just waiting for an answer and they have to think about it. There's no like answer they could just give an answer like, right? I don't know, because I don't think a lot of girls are asked this. Right.
No, it makes you think a little bit about yourself, and also the guy who's on the date gets to know something a little personal.
And I guess. And this is
like a not super personal, because I guess you can tell him whatever you want.
It's not an invasive question like, tell me about your brother or whatever. It's not invasive. It's a very casual way of, but like you really build a connection, I think, with people. So if I were to ask you, what would you say? I put you on the spot, I know, but I'm curious.
Oh, yeah, you put me on
I'm curious. There's a reason I asked you.
Oh, probably that, I don't know.
So, like, if usually the girl after answering whatever, they'll ask you, so what about you? So one thing I just learned about myself, I think it'd probably be on another podcast totally. I think it's one thing I wish people knew about me is that, everyone knows like I'm like a one and done guy, but I think it's because I say things that I think are very humorous, but it turns out to be that I'm indirectly pushing people away because for whatever reason there was a trigger and I don't like talking about a certain trigger. So therefore I will do anything in my power to indirectly push away the conversation. And what it does is, as a result, does not allow there to be any connection whatsoever. So therefore it makes a lot of sense why if I go out on all these dates and either the girl or me and they're like, how was it? It's like, I just felt no connection. It makes a lot of sense now that there was no connection because I'm not allowing it. But I didn't know that. That's
what you would tell her on the first. That's what you.
I know it's deep stuff. It's deep stuff. I mean, I'm allowed to.
Really deep stuff.
So I'm saying like.
I was thinking of like if I like humbled, or like if I have like a talent nobody knows about.
You could do that too. And the thing is, it's almost like with these 7 questions, there's 7 opportunities to delve into a very deep and meaningful conversation, as Shlomi loves to put it. But
Yeah.
in reality, like my response, I can't imagine it not getting deeper than that.
No, those are 2 really good questions.
Phenomenal
to have,
questions,
yeah.
right?
But you do agree that like stay away from politics and like very personal questions that can come up a little later, you know?
And I wanted to say this before, but I forgot. I lost my train of thought. But I think whenever someone starts talking about the actual dating process on a date, I think is the first sign to know that this date is over.
Oh yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, one guy actually did bring that up to me. He was like, so like this whole shidduch dating thing, or this whole dating is like terrible, am I right? And I'm just like, well, I guess I know how you're feeling about this date, you know?
So I guess into our another thing not to say on a date is to talk about the actual, and I definitely am, what's it called? I definitely have done it before. I didn't mean to, whatever, but the date was over anyways, but you really shouldn't. I should be better. I need to be better about that, but I know you really shouldn't be talking about how dating is going in general, because I do think it indicates that this date is over, basically.
Well, it's just, yeah, I mean, you know, I just think that's also like a very personal question. And like, hopefully the date that you're on is like hopefully not having that thought in the front of your mind, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So you want to get into the next question?
Yeah, sure.
But and I just asked 2 questions. You probably could have had a conversation for 30 minutes about that, no?
Yeah, oh my God, you can definitely have like a good conversation.
Totally. I'm looking forward to my date on Thursday. Really looking to get into this. So
that's exciting.
And we actually discussed these questions over text, and like because of that, I think we're both like very excited to meet each other, because it kind of built the foundation. Shidduchim.
Good.
If your friends could describe you to me, what would they say? Shidduchim.
Oh, I don't know if I like that one.
You don't like that question?
Only because like your friends, like hopefully your friends know you very well, but I don't know. I'm sitting right in front of you.
I guess maybe
a girl sitting right in front of you, right? So like, why do you have to ask my friends? Ask me.
Touche. I just got slapped in the face over the radio. Whatever, waves from Israel. Okay, touche.
I'm just trying to put into perspective is all. I mean, maybe a girl would like that, but I'd be like, wait, why do you have to ask? Like, I'm right
I'm
here.
curious if I've asked it before and it like worked really well.
Okay.
That maybe ask it before the last question, because maybe we got into a more intimate conversation and then I just asked that. It's almost like taking a step out of the box in a way.
Yeah,
maybe not to ask it then. So maybe whatever. So all right, let's skip that. Let's go to the next question.
Okay.
What do you think is your most attractive quality? Here we're getting a little bit more deeper.
Yeah, you're getting a little more deeper. I don't know if people would feel like comfortable like talking about themselves, but it is a very good question, because you know, however they respond is a good conversation to have.
Right. And this is not just talking about like looks attractive. It's more like, what quality do you have that's attractive? And I think it opens their mind. I think it also makes them feel like you don't look at them as a piece of meat or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love this question. I think this is about the time where they're like, wow, these are really good questions.
Yeah.
But Sarah would say, accept that other one.
Other one. Sorry.
Shidduchim.
Shidduchim.
That's right. Anyway, so I'll just I guess I'll just finish off here. I'll fill in the rest of the questions. So usually, like whenever I felt like it was a really good connection, I would ask this question and be like, so how do you know when you like a guy? It basically like it's almost like you already feel like she likes you, but then ask that question. I feel like they don't know what to answer, but they just feel all giggly inside. Whatever.
Oh boy, that is a daring question.
It's a daring question?
Yeah.
How so?
I don't know. I guess it depends if somebody wants to actually give out, you know, how they're feeling. that's like, you're really asking them basically, so do you like, how do you feel about us? Or like, how do you feel about me?
Hey, but I think
that's what I would think.
I think it gives the impression like you're not here to be friends.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
So I think that's, I mean, you
That's
tell
a good
me.
tactic.
Yeah.
No, it's a good tactic. Yeah, for sure.
So we cover what's your love language, what's one thing you wish people knew about you. Scratch off. If your friends could describe you to me, what would they say? How do you know when you like a guy? What do you think is your most attractive quality? I've got two more. And it doesn't have to be in this order. You figure out the best you want, but what's the best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the last one, last but not least, what's your favorite thing about yourself?
Oh, that's also nice. Yeah.
Shidduchim. So yeah, so I feel like all these questions are just, besides one, are women approved, apparently.
Yeah, no, it definitely gets the ball rolling. It's definitely a different way of like looking at the date. And they're all, I feel like, a good balance of like being personal, but also like getting to know the person without it like stepping boundaries, you know?
Yeah, I don't think you're overstepping any boundaries. It's not super personal, but yet it is personal and it feels like you're building a connection. And I think it gives the other side room to, you don't have to say anything, but you're saying what she wants to say. You're not asking anything out of line. It's like, tell me one thing people wish they knew about you. It's up
Right.
to them what they give out.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
I don't know. These have been working
Exactly.
for me. I really love it, and I feel like more prepared, quote unquote, when I walk in a date to be able to form a deep and meaningful conversation.
Yeah, and like form some sort of connection.
I feel like just these questions alone are going to get at least 3 people married who listening from this podcast.
Listen, I hope they take your advice and like they ask some of these questions because it really does set a good like vibe. I feel like on
Yeah.
the first date.
Yeah, and again, you didn't know these
For
questions
sure.
before until the podcast.
No, I did not know the
Yeah,
questions. The only
yeah.
one that I did like that I was familiar with was your love language.
Yeah, my brother
But that
took
was
that
it.
one. Yeah. I think I outdueled Shlomi, even though he's married already, but that's fine. So, see, you don't even need all 7. You just need one and you can get married. Look at that.
There you go. There you go. You just need one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I agree.
Shidukim.
Shouldn't see.
Shidukim was my friend Biyama Barman started quoting that because I use this AI app called Parrot AI or something. You basically you can write in whatever you want, and you can pick choice of celebrity, and then you fill in the text, and then it'll make you like a 30-second video of them talking whatever you wrote. And so when I wrote Shidduchim, you can't write Shidduchim. They can't pronounce CH. So they're like
Right.
Shidduchim. So I wrote Shidukim with a K, so they pronounced it Shidukim.
Shidukim.
That's so funny.
Beyond always text me now Shidukim. So it's a little bit more modern, but I still like Shidduchim. But
Yeah.
so I threw it in there for a change. But yeah,
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on things to say on a date? I think this could really help people.
No, I hope that people take your questions and your advice, and I hope people also just think about what I said as well, just not putting as much pressure on the first date and not trying to focus more on getting to know the person rather than these very personal questions, so
Yeah.
no, that's really I think it's hopefully people agree with us, and I hope on their next date, first date or second date, maybe on their third date, hopefully it goes well and they are successful.
Yeah, what's interesting is I'm still in the game. I'm in the game. And so I'm definitely seeing a shift in the game. I'm also dating firmer girls, which I think is great. I don't know, it just
Yeah.
seems to be more on par. After all, apparently I'm firmer than I thought.
You are.
Hopefully this helps you. Hopefully this helps people.
Yeah.
And let me ask the audience, what questions do you find that work for you? I'm curious to know what you guys not only think, but would you add a different question than what we had as far as these 7 questions?
Oh yeah. Or
Um,
what's a good successful question?
What's a successful question you guys ask? I'm really curious to know. And if it's really good, we really like it, I would totally probably mention on the next podcast. As I mentioned, we got an email from a fan of ours, and number one, we really appreciate the honest feedback and ideas on what to say on the next podcast, but we actually read it and actually internalize it. And then if it's good and we like it, we will put it into the podcast.
Yeah, we're just trying to we're going to definitely talk about the email that we got. We just need to make sure we finalize some thoughts, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
exciting. Well, thanks guys for listening, and hopefully we catch you on the next episode.
Definitely. Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
And remember, everything will always be about shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.